What is up, guys? Frugal BC, and boy, I got some people mad at me this week. Oh man, well, we're gonna talk about that. We'll go through all the drama around Lofty AI this week because they're really ticked at me, and that's okay. We'll go through all that. I don't necessarily just want a drama farm, but I think there's like some real issues that it raises that I want to talk about. So let's go back. And see everyone, everyday Algonaut in the chat. GM, what is up? Good morning, everyday Algonaut. And same to you, Green Blue Algo saying GM in the chat. Green Blue says he sold one of his black NFTs for 22,345. Algo, by the way, Folks token launching this week, which is really cool. We'll probably talk about that a little bit. Green Blue says still have zero clue what Folks is for other than third world aura farming. I think that's funny. Yeah. Someone once told me that they don't see any reason why any project really needs a token. I think it provides them some liquidity. I don't know what you mean by aura farming exactly, but yeah, people they build excitement. They bring liquidity. I think they get some money for the founders, but I also think they can be managed well. If we've seen from Alpha and from Haystack being one of our sponsors, but they both have similar tokenomics. Working really, really well. Simon B saying, GM, what is up? Fracas in the chat saying, good morning. What's up, Fracas? Green Blue says, I know Frugal PC wanted my NFT, but you snooze, you lose. Congrats on landings. The Woods interview, by the way. So I did not want your NFT. I assume you're talking about the Black Card NFT. No, I did not want that. I don't know what it's supposed to be for other than, I guess, farming some Folks tokens, right? But I did cover the drama because people were really mad. I didn't really care because I wasn't trying to get one. I'm not that heavy of a user of Folks. I lend out some USDC on it. I might do a little bit more, but otherwise, yeah, not really, doesn't really impact me, but, but that's funny. Some people did snooze and they did lose. Well, I did think it was probably a bad idea to only give them out to a certain number of people or to allow more than one person to buy one. I think that was a really bad idea. Markets are very interesting today, by the way. If you look at Bitcoin's price, you think, and Ethereum as well, you think, oh, they're all doing terrible, but some stuff really pumped. And I didn't do a portfolio update this week. Oh, by the way, yeah, Green Blue says, congrats on landing the Woods interview. And yeah, John Woods, he's great. I don't care where he goes. I'm always going to want to talk to him. And, I kind of consider him an online friend at this point, I think. And, he's someone, what I like about him, and you guys, if you haven't seen the interview, you should definitely watch it, maybe after the live stream today. Absolutely recommend it. We talked about his new project, Nillion. He was very candid about why he left the foundation. I think he was, I don't think he really pulled any punches, to be honest. And, basically he could see stuff he wanted to do that he wasn't able to do it. So John and I actually have been talking about him coming on the show for a while. He was trying to get permission from Nillion, and eventually he's just like, screw it, I'm going to come on. So super cool to have him on as always. And yeah, we shared a lot of insight on that show, so you should definitely check it out. I think Nillion's a really cool project. It's a little bit different. It's not a blockchain, so not really competing with Algorand. I think, in fact, you kind of talked about how there's room for some partnership there, which I think is really cool. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out, you should definitely check that out. Very cool. All right, well, we got a nice little audience on YouTube. Remember to hit the like and subscribe button. The like button is really important, by the way, for live streams, guys. So if you can hit, it's doesn't cost you anything. You just hit that little like button, and it helps get more viewership, helps get more people seeing the channel, and they can see what we're talking about Algorand and Hedera, which is where I'm going to focus today. So please do that if you haven't already. Appreciate that, guys. I know you will. I know you will. You guys are awesome. Let's see what our viewership. I know I can never see Kick viewership because here's the thing about Kick and streaming platforms like that. You kind of have to game the system a little bit because they don't just automatically, they don't like find viewers for you. Like YouTube will try to like find viewers for you. And there's definitely complaints to be had about how YouTube handles its live streams. It's kind of annoying. But at least they like attempt to find an audience. They try to like reach out to the people who follow you and stuff like that. You know, Kick and Twitch, they don't really do that. And so the only way you can like get noticed is if you seed it a little bit. So I usually like, you know, on my laptop and on my phone, which I put on the charger, I usually like pull up the stream, and that starts like 2 viewers, and then those will compound. And I've seen like, I didn't do that for the Woods interview, and it got like 1 view. It got like 1 view, which is insane. So that's what you got to do on there. I know it kind of sucks, but yeah. So hitting the like button, really important. So I appreciate that, guys. Yeah, we're gonna talk about some stuff. I got into a big fight with Lofty AI's CEO this week about the platform because I shared some results. And, you know, that's what I do on the channel, by the way. Like, I tried this stuff out, and I'm realistic about, you know, did this work? What's good? What's bad? Is this a good idea? I try to evaluate everything fairly. And he didn't like that. He did not like that. And he kind of came after me a little bit. I kind of went back after him. And, you know, some people really stood up for Lofty. A lot of people were on my side. Green Blue says, "Oh, every day says I smashed the like button." No, no, just kidding. You can smash, like I always say, you know, you can smash it if you want. I'm just saying you don't have to. You can just press it ever so gently if you like, or, you know, whatever pressure you'd like to apply to that like button is fine with me. But I appreciate that every day. I appreciate that a lot. Green Blue says, "Can you give us a tour of Lofty?" It sounded like token holders are supposed to knock on doors and collect rent yourself. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, and we'll get into it. Trust me, because the bigger thing I want to talk about is this phenomenon in crypto. It happens. It can happen in a lot of different markets, but it seems to be particularly prevalent in crypto, where it's like, if something doesn't work for you, it's your fault. It's not the platform's fault. It's like if the product market fit isn't there, then it's the market's fault, not the products. And I think that's not a good attitude to have as a founder of any company, but especially a crypto company, because like we have a lot of options. You know what I mean? A lot of options. So why would we use something that's inferior? It's just, anyway, we'll get into that. We'll talk about what I think about Lofty, why I'm pulling everything out I can, despite whether I take a loss. And Everyday Algonaut says algo is pumping last hour. Yeah, we're going to look at the charts because a lot of stuff is pumping compared to, you know, like I said, if you look at Bitcoin and ETH, it looks like the market's dead right now. But a lot of coins are having their day. Now, when I say that, they're still, you know, they're still like way below where they were, like, say, a month ago. But yeah, we'll dig into that. In fact, oh, Fisherman in the chat. Hey, Fisherman, what's going on, brother? And did you see, you know, shout out to our sponsor, Haystack. It was a good time to do that, by the way. Haystack, the trading app on Algorand, makes trading easier than any other platform, and endorsed by John Allen Woods, former CTO of Algorand, using the Haystack app, he says. And I like to see that. So that's your way to do that, by the way. Big shout out from John Woods about the Haystack app. I thought that was really neat. And by the way, also big shout out to our sponsor, Marcus Aurelius, the meme coin and Algorand, meme coin and NFT project, bringing stoicism to the Algorand community and to the broader ecosystem. So I think that's a really cool project too. I don't do a lot of meme coins, but that one I just like how that works. So, Green Blue Algo says government reopens in like an hour, probably. That's interesting. Let's see. This could have a huge impact on crypto, by the way, and maybe already is, but not Bitcoin. Strange. Let's see. Updates. Oh, this from USA Today. Senators to vote again on revised bill to end shutdown. Interesting. So yeah, it could be. The revised bill will likely keep the federal government's lights on past Thanksgiving, which, you know, you definitely want, because people are gonna be traveling for the holidays. And Fisherman says Jaws is a Chad. Great chat with him, by the way. I appreciate that. Yeah, I really wanted to, you know, what I like about talking with him is he just doesn't pull punches. He tells it how it is. he's very intellectually honest, and it would be awesome. You know, Stacy mentioned that she's shutting down. We had a little chat about Stacy, and I don't want to reveal what was said, but kind of what I thought is kind of true. And so she's apparently going to be stepping down. And wouldn't it be cool to bring John Woods back as CEO? I think that'd be awesome. Definitely need to see some. I think we also need to see a consolidation of Inc. and, or I guess it's technologies now, Algorand Technologies and Algorand Foundation. So anyway, enough about that. Let's get to the charts. Let's see. Is this going to help us? As overall market cap down to 3.37 trillion, which is still pretty crazy. Although if you think of gold as 30, which John pointed out yesterday, it's like 30 trillion market cap. I think there's a lot of value. You know, that's a good argument for the market being undervalued, because this is providing like real stuff in the world, and you know, gold is too, to a degree, but not in the same way. You know what I mean? But yeah, so you know, the top 5 not really doing that well, but then you start getting down here. You look at Dogecoin is up a little on the week. Zcash up 30% and 80 some percent on the week. Huge privacy coin play there, which John had kind of talked about that. He thought, and he's a big Monero fan, was kind of surprised about Zcash. Cryptosora, welcome to the show, says Algo 16 to 17.6 cents climb in the last hour. Yeah, we're working our way there. Sweet, about 6%. That's a nice little run. Litecoin up 8%. By the way, the Litecoin's Twitter is hilarious. We might look at that later if we got a little time. Yeah, Monero not really having that same bump, but and I know John was saying like technically Monero was, at least back in the day, was definitely superior to Zcash, although he said some of the stuff got shored up and is a little bit better now. Polkadot 12% up. Internet Computer 157.46% up on the week, which is wild. Green Blue Algo says, speaking of gold, and we might get to that too. That's huge though. So this is the thing, like, this is why I don't really like, I just buy my positions and I take profits when profits are there, but otherwise I just kind of leave them alone typically, because you just never know when something is going to pump. Now I don't have ICP, but I do have Near, and Near is up like 30% on the last 24 hours, which is wild. So this was actually under $2 at one point, and I've had a pretty decent little bag of Near. I should be, let me rearrange this a little bit here. Yeah, we'll just put that here. I'll move myself over here for the time being. A little easier to see then. What else? Ethereum Classic up like 20.5%. That's pretty good. Aptos up almost 13% on the 24-hour. Look at Filecoin. It's another one. See, you just never know when these are going to pop off. So that's why I just don't, oh, Polkadot pumping too. It's cool. That's why I just don't, you know, I don't discount them. Now, Algorand, 10% on the 24-hour. That's not bad, or just under. You know, that's nothing to shake a fist at. I was, so my girlfriend watched the entire, she's a media person. She watched the entire John Woods interview, really liked it, but she's like, yeah, I didn't understand a word you were saying. Not a word. She did look up staking, though, and we had a little talk about staking last night, which is kind of cool. Caspa, 12%. Cosmos, 11%. You know, I do have a pretty decent bag of Cosmos. Let's see. Zcash was big for Russians when sanctions went on. Oh, that makes sense. Tau is insane. LOL. Yeah. And all of the turbo crap coins going bonkers. I don't know. It's kind of a mix. Actually, I'm not saying, I'm seeing like at least stuff that's like attempting to do real world stuff is the ones that pumping, like ICP or Filecoin. It's not like, you know, sorry, I meant Tau, not Zcash. Oh, not Tau, I meant Zcash. Yeah, okay. That makes more sense. Story Render, that's a nice little bump for Render. So we're not really seeing the meme coins pump. Actually, Bonk is like 6%, you know? Where's Bobby Jonas at? XDC not having the same pump. Now I don't actually dislike XDC, but one of my trolls on here, Bobby Jonas, and we love him. He's like a, friendly villain, I guess you would say. He comes on here all the time and he's like, Algorand's dead, get XDC. So we have a lot of back and forth. Let's see, virtual's at 14. Artificial Superintelligence Alliance. I don't know anything about this. FET up almost 50%. That's a good pump for 24 hours. And by the way, if you own these, you better be pulling some profit. If you're in profit, that's a big if. If you're in profit, you should be pulling profits off the table, take 10% off. Start building that moon bag, the graph. It's a blast from the past, huh? Starknet at 41.5. Some of these, Plasma, I don't know a lot about. IOTA. Someone was talking about IOTA in the chat before. Yeah, so not bad. Now, what are like the top 5 for the 24 hour? We kind of went through them piecemeal fashion. Yeah, Filecoin at the top. The one I benefited from the most is Near Protocol, but yeah, Zcash up there. Interesting. What about on the week? Kind of the same? I mean, that ICP one is huge. So is Dash, ZK Sync, Filecoin, Decred, Zcash. And then we get down to like Near for me. I used to have Tezos. Like Tezos kind of making a little comeback there, it looks like. Aster, I wish I could buy this one. I think it's going to pump. It just seems to have a lot of momentum behind it. Well, why don't we go over to Algorand, and yeah, you can see now here they have it at 13.49. So it's interesting that it's different. I'm going to move this back. We'll just go like this. Let's dive a little deeper on Algorand. Chinese always liked Filecoin. Oh, I didn't know that. We need to push the quantum security narrative more. I think that's going to really play out in the future. So, okay, let's see. So here's Algorand. Let's put our indicators on. I also would really rather be on the 4 hour. I think it should default to that. RSI. And so we're about mid-range on we were pretty close to oversold territory. Let's see 4 hour though. Yeah, we were way under oversold on the 4 hour. Would be nice if Algorand was up for the week. Yeah, well, you gotta take your wins when you get them. Starting to get, yeah, we're getting close to that, aren't we? Anyway, huge pump up. Yeah, huge candle. So whenever you get, and I've talked about this, whenever you get toward the bottom of the Bollinger Band in that trading zone, and then you get below 30 on the RSI, you're almost always going to get a pump. So if you wanted to do like spot trading, that's what you would kind of look for. Now, it doesn't always pan out amazingly, but you do get a pump, right? Especially something like this. It's gonna move for sure. If you want to do spot trading, I'm just saying. Not saying you do or you don't, but it's a possibility. And getting on, not quite oversold, but it's getting up there. That doesn't always. It's hard. You wouldn't use that necessarily as a top signal because sometimes it really pumps beyond that range. But something to keep in mind. Let's go back to the Explore tab here. Polka Gold is up. I know some people mentioning Polka Gold. Let's talk a little bit about the Folks Finance token. This just launched. I suppose they're going to give me the daily chart. I really wish it defaulted to the 4 hour. Very interesting. Not our typical, ASA boot. It kind of is though. Kind of have this huge pump up, huge crash down, but we're still at like almost $5. I mean, that's still pretty good for a token launch. Now, there's only 50 million of them, as I recall. We went through the tokenomics before. So a $5 launch, that's still pretty good. A lot of people, I don't think anybody's buying this right now. I think it's just got it for free and they're selling off, which is what you do. When you get free coins, like most people, that's just what they're going to do. Cryptosaurus says most altcoins had hit the floor over the last couple of weeks. Now they're only way is up. It's all there. No, there's always a way down. But once they start getting oversold, you can usually expect a little pump up. If you bought them when they were down, you'd be in profit right now. Yeah, I'm always buying Bitcoin, but a lot of it kind of depends. Like I took some lower positions. I used it to some of my positions that were where I was in the red. I took the opportunity to lower my average buy. But then some of them, like Solana, I still be raising my average buy. So I'm not going to buy more Solana. I'm still way up on it. My Erdeds, this is this EA looking Hedera Grayscale up spot ETF should be approved at the 11th. Yeah. Well, those are I think a lot of those are up in the air right now, aren't they, with the government shutdown? I know we had the Canary one, which we covered, and whew, boy, was that kicking butt. I got a little scab there. Everyday Algonaut says I did buy some and put into AMMs. Sometimes I've been buying some of these Algorand dips to put into my staking. I'm actually up to almost I've almost gained 1,000 Algorand just through ready pools, and I haven't been doing it that long. Anyway, that is, folks. Yeah, I know. Here we are. Okay, going back through Alpha up 11, almost 12% on the week. Hold on, I gotta check this. Absolutely, by the way, this is one of my best plays so far has been Alpha Arcade. I just keep earning more. Let's see. Yeah, my alpha is back up to being about 250 some. I started with 100. I did get like 2,000 alpha, which was about 20 bucks worth, maybe a little bit more from streaming. And I might do that again sometime soon. Maybe I'll start doing that once a month. By the way, Alpha gave me the Alpha badge on X. They did not explain why. I think they're doing that to I think it's like free well, it's not free. It's $50 a badge, but I think it's like marketing for them. It's like a pretty cheap marketing tactic for them. I'm not sure how long I'm going to keep it, but it is giving me a huge boost on my X post. So I don't know. We'll see. I feel a little funny about it though. Here's Haystack. Now that's not looking so good, but up a little bit here. Like I said, Haystack on the 24-hour is up 17%. Nice to see, but thanks to a down week, still not really up. There's Votecoin. There's Votecoin Everyday Algonaut. There's your Votecoin, up 9% on the week. That's cool. And Liquid Hog been kind of middling there a little bit. Up on the 1 hour though. By the way, I'm glad they added the 7-day on here. Makes me happy. Yeah, Monko had a nice 24-hour pump. Look at that, 21.83%. That's amazing. And I get Algo at 10. Aura with 12.5. Let's go, Aura. Anything on the trending that we should pay attention to? I mean, nice to see Votecoin on the popular chart. There you go, GM. There you go, Everyday Algonaut. Tiny up a little. Yeah, look at Tiny fell to Polkadot. And it's currently worth half a cent. You want to know why yeah, it's just crashing. My whole thing was this thing is between 2.5 and 5 cents, which is why I was happy to take rewards in it. Glad I stopped because it's just going worse and worse and worse. Anything else to talk about? I don't know a lot about fried node or unit on top gainers. So that's interesting. Alpha is dope. Hypercosmum, you're right. Absolutely. Well, let's look at the Hedera ones. I'm going to go make this a little bit bigger. The popular and trending is tokens sorted by trading volume. I guess a lot of trading happening there, huh? Really nice, really nice. Look, these are 24-hour price changes, and everything's looking up. That's pretty good. Probably the best one on here is Dovu at 14%. Got Growth and HBarX. A lot of them at around the 7% range, like Growth, HBarX, DaVinci Graph, Headstarter, Karate, from the Karate Combat. Actually, one of my favorite tokens, by the way, one of my favorite projects is Karate Combat. I think it's so cool. I actually enjoy it way more than the UFC. I know some people get mad when I say that, but I just think it's objectively better. It's more fun. I think they have it set up really well. They found a way to make the clinch. First off, they just took away the clinch by having the angled ring around it, the pit instead of the cage. Took away that clinch because the clinch is boring for fans. It's so boring. And then, it's just that there's like a certain thing you have to do. You have to keep the action up when you're ground and pounding. If you don't, then it's they just get stood up. So, which is good. We can watch, because we want to watch action. You don't want to watch people like tied up on the cage for 3 minutes. It's just boring. And it's an entertainment. It is there for entertainment. You can't see it, but Dosa the Demon. I can't scroll down far enough for you guys to see it. Is at 8%. Smack FM and Dino and Ivy at 7%. Those are below HBar Suite on here. I have had some interest, by the way, in Hashpack coming on the show, so we might work on that. Everyday Algorand says I sent you some vote tip. I appreciate that, my friend. I appreciate that. Shout out to Everyday Algorand. Shout out to VoteCoin. Let me just I like to pull it up and just take a look. There it is. Appreciate that. I've been getting some puff from my puff NFT as well, and I'm really looking forward to the game actually coming out, so I can play it on iPhone. I probably won't work on iPhone 8 anyway, though. I gotta get a new iPhone. Ooh, that takes a lot of juice. All right, well, that's our markets for today. Pretty interesting stuff. By the way, the lofty debate is still going on on X without me. I just whatever, man. So we're gonna talk about that. Which, by the way, I find it funny that Alpha Arcade gave me this badge, and then I had some problems with, I called out Lofty, and it's the same people, and they haven't taken it away. Need your NFT. Oh yeah. Hypercosma folks rule, says James. Just appreciate that. And you need your NFT in the description. No, you're right. Let's see. Frugal. It's pretty simple. It's frugalbc.algo. So there you go. In case anyone wants to send anything, but no, you're right. I should put that in the description. I'll have to add that for next time. Let's see. I want to get this set up here. All right, so Lofty AI super ticked at me right now. And, it is what it is. But all I did was I shared my latest experience with Lofty. And, well, it kind of got called out by the Lofty AI founder, and that's fine. That's his right to do so. But I think it illustrates something bigger, like a bigger problem in the crypto ecosystem. So I think this is worth highlighting, not just for, drama farming, although I guess I am drama farming a little bit, but okay, here we go. Let's lock in, because let's see let's just start with what I posted, which I think was pretty benign, but let's talk. All right, so I said, just as an update, 3 of my remaining properties on Lofty AI. I probably should have said just 3 of my properties. 3 of my remaining properties on Lofty AI are earning any rent money. And yeah, I probably worded that someone kind of like, it was a little awkward of a wording, but it wasn't wrong. It just was maybe awkward, read a little awkward. And all of the tokens are worth less than I paid for them by quite a bit. So what are we talking about? So on Lofty AI, just to back up, on Lofty AI, you buy fractional shares of real estate, or at least that's the promise, right? And so the idea is like, real estate's pretty expensive to get into. This is like a lower cost way to do that. And you do that by, you can buy $50 tokens. Now that's a really low barrier to entry. Let's just be clear about that. These aren't 500 or 1,000. These are $50. So just about anyone can buy them. It's very easy to buy them. And let's just keep that in mind. So now the idea is you're buying properties that are going to be rental properties. You're not just buying like, a house for whatever. You're buying, you can buy single family homes. I think that was most of the ones in the beginning. They started adding multifamily. And so, but $50, you're going to earn like a fraction of the rent paid out daily. And it's a pretty small amount. You're not getting like a ton. Okay. But I thought, well, that sounds kind of cool. You have these tokens and it's like having a token and earning yield. Big mistake on my part, maybe. Okay. But that's what we do. We try things out. We see how it goes and we bring you the results. And the results is, it's about 13. And I probably should have put the total in there. No, it's probably about 3 of 10. I think I have like 10 left. I'd have to go check. I've been trying to sell them whenever it's possible. Not easy to do. And that's a whole nother issue on there for sure. But anyway, so 3 of my properties are earning rent. One of them was earning like barely any. So only 2 are like paying a significant amount of rent. Most of them, not at all, which is crazy. If I owned a set of 10 properties in the real world, the idea that like most of them wouldn't be like bringing in rent is crazy. It just wouldn't happen. Okay. Anyway, so that's what I said. And you can see it got pretty good views, right? Well, this is the co-founder of Lofty and of Alpha Arcade also. And Keybs for all the custom mechanical keyboards. I didn't know about that actually. I just saw that. No longer following me, it appears. Oops. Anyway, it says, I guess it's time for my annual address on what Lofty is and isn't. Lofty is a marketplace for real estate. Instead of buying and selling entire properties, you can buy and sell fractional ownership of the equity instead. Tokens are the equity, which means you have legal ownership and can do whatever an owner can do. We do not manage assets for you. Fine. But they have property managers, right? So you manage them yourselves with your co-owners voting on and proposing things using your ownership. There are property managers who handle the basic day-to-day tasks. Now listen, if I were a property manager, I want them basically collecting rent. I want them fixing the problems. What else do I need to do? Like, anyway, but you are responsible for monitoring their performance and keeping them accountable as the owners. If the owners completely check out for a year, they should not be surprised to come back and find that their assets aren't performing as they expected. Like what, meaning what? What am I supposed to do? This is what I don't get. What am I supposed to do? I mean, I can vote on things. Okay, cool. And you just keep looking for new property managers. How is it? Why couldn't Lofty work with property managers to make sure they have decent property managers? If you owned your rental property, not just completely ignore every email update from your property manager, tenant, or capital call. Lofty works the same way. Just because you do this online doesn't mean you can just walk away and ignore things. If you want a completely passive real estate investment, there are RITs and other managed funds you can deploy to, which I think probably is a way better option. Because let's see the now here he says in this particular user's case, if he believes that the equity tokens are trading below the property's market value, it takes him 5 minutes to draft up a government proposal to sell the property on real estate market. Okay, so let's pull this apart. Oh, by the way, it would appear that over the years he has proposed 0 votes on anything. So, first off, I don't remember them ever saying that as an expectation. When I've listened to interviews with them, they make it sound like, oh, you just own these tokens and you get some rent and cool, So fine, if that's not the case, fine. But then what's the value proposition here? This is what I'm trying to understand. So the value proposition is apparently you can have all the headaches of real estate with way less control than you would have if it was your own property, right? So I have to spend all this time trying to convince other people to do something wise for the property, apparently, right? For like, owning like a $50 token or, what? Some I have like the McDonald's one. I have 70. I have 6 tokens. I own $300 worth. So for $300 worth of real estate, I have to do all the work that I would normally do, plus really more work, because I'm convincing other people to go along with my idea. You know, this is what that's crazy, by the way. So fine, whatever, you know, the other idea. But here's the real problem with what he's saying. This literally addresses nothing about my central point. You don't own a fractional share of the real estate. You own some token roughly based on that real estate that isn't actually correlated with the price of the actual real estate. So a good example. So I own this Miami property, and the token went from being worth $50 to being worth like $13. So almost a fifth under the value, almost a fifth under the value. How is this a good thing? How is that an actual fractionalized share of the value? It's not. Instead, I said I've been done with Lofty for a while. Definitely done now. Yeah, absolutely. I said, but sure, the problem is I didn't vote enough. It's like, what the actual hell? And also I said, you know, thanks for sharing my activity on your platform. That's a real dick move. I think that is a dick move. So the central point I want to make is, we were sold the promise of this being a share of the actual real estate value. So if I own $50 and the value goes up, my $50 should go up to, like, you know, 52 or 53. And that's how it was. And then all of a sudden they added automatic market makers, and then that just disappeared. Now all the tokens are worth. So his response was like something like, "Oh, you could just propose a vote to sell it and then get your share." I'm like, so I have to sell the entire property just to get what it's actually worth. That's everyone has to sell the property for us to get what it's worth. Now that's happened a couple times. But I've been done with this. I've been trying to, like, get out of this thing for a long time. It's really hard to unwind. I think they finally added it so the automatic market maker would work with an outside wallet. I was asking for that for years. Basically, it was like, you know, brushed off, by the way, when I asked for this stuff. But here's the bigger problem. Here's the bigger problem. This is the founder attitude that I find absolutely insidious. If the product doesn't work right, if it doesn't address your needs, it's your fault. It's not that maybe the product just doesn't do what it's supposed to do, but it's your fault for not, you know, understanding it's actually worse than it was promised. And this is a problem I see more in crypto than I see in the outside world. And it's really, really frustrating. So stay here, Abby. So I don't know what to do about this. Green Blue Algo says, is it possible property value went down substantially? How is this calculated? Yeah, okay, good point. So I actually looked at the Miami property. First off, like, the idea that it would go down by 4/5 or 3/5, more than 3/5, not likely, but I did actually check. No, it didn't. The value actually went up. So the problem is they're actually decoupled from the actual price. And that's a problem. Because of the automatic market maker, the tokens have their own value that is not tied to the actual real estate. So that's a problem. I mean, that just ruins the whole thing. In my opinion, that just screws the whole thing. So this is the drama with Lofty. This is my frustration, and that's fine. You know, you want to, I'm going to follow him. Bye. R.I.P. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry. You know, I'm always going to call it the way it is. If people don't like it, too bad. You know, if you guys want to get into it, you know, that's up to you. I really think, to me, it's just the worst of both worlds. It's like all the work, apparently, of owning a real estate, but you don't have any control, or you have like a limited control because you have tons of other fractionalized owners. And I just don't see the point. But you don't get the upside of, like, owning real estate. You get, like, tax benefits. Also, by the way, it's like a taxing nightmare. I was kind of doing it in a hodgepodge way. I was just counting the income, basically. But really, you're supposed to do individual taxes for each of these properties. which they also didn't really make clear up front. So I'm just like really soured on fractional real estate in general. Like it sounds like a cool idea. And by the way, Ondo addressed that pricing decoupling because their stocks are tied to the actual asset price. That's really, really important in my opinion. You can't have these being opposites. It just doesn't make sense. So anyway, and Blue Green says, how is this not an orange grove? I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure what you mean by that. But yeah, I'm not a huge I'm just done with it. It is what it is. We got more, by the way. More Algorand news. So I'm not done with that. Really short one that I want to cover here is apparently Folks is already a bot on already a prize on Algorand. I think there's a Folks bot, and you can actually earn Folks, which is pretty cool. I think we had Simon. I think that was Simon from that we had in our chat from Cosmic Champs before. So I got one more too. I wanted to talk about this one because there's been a lot of discussions about liquidity, and it looks like Fred Estante has talking about this. Definitely, I saw that you tagged me in another comment, but that was very late in seeing it. Have newborn. Okay, liquidity has obviously always been. Oh yeah, go champ. Simon B in the chat. What's up? What's up? Liquidity has always been a big problem of our ecosystem since the very beginning when TinyMan first launched. Over the years, Algorand Foundation tried many tricks to increase TVL and volume, and although we had some temporary good results, nothing was sticky. I'm personally not a big fan of incentives programs because as soon as they dry out, there's always the next foundation offering higher yields next door, and the vast majority of TVL isn't faithful. They will chase that yield, as they should, really. So I appreciate that he acknowledges this. You notice what he's not doing? You notice what he's not doing? He's not blaming the user. He's saying, yeah, you're going to chase yield, of course. When we did a thorough analysis about the possibility of Algorand Foundation deploying from its own treasury into LPs, and as it turns out, it's a very bad idea from a legal and regulatory perspective. That's what we were told from both internal and external counsel. We can provide liquidity in lending markets and some other classes of products, but not algo in DEX. Oh, there you go. There's something. Oh, Howey test is based on the fractional ownership of an orange grove. I'll have to look at that. The key issue here is mainly about algo itself, so we have high confidence that we'll be able to deploy the ASAs in our treasury into LPs. Looking into it and seems possible, so we should have a final answer and hopefully action soon. Interesting. They have ASAs in their treasury? I wonder what ASAs they have in their treasury and how much. That's actually kind of interesting. Going back to the liquidity issue, after exploring many avenues, including giving zero interest loan to DeFi protocols in our ecosystem to deploy on our behalf, realized that the best course of action is to try and bring the big boys into the game. Yes, on-chain market makers. That's a very predatory business model. If you think you know how predatory it is, 10x that. We've been in long conversations with all the top ones in the industry and then more. We've received lots of proposals and an excellent process led by my colleagues Amar and John, and we are in the process of evaluating and negotiating. It's not a done deal yet, so I can't promise if it will indeed happen, but we're advancing strongly, and we have a feeling this can potentially happen. Good morning, says Jackson Crawford. Welcome here. Green Blue says Haystack and some other subsidize their pairs. Some of these entities, which I obviously can't name as of now, are much more than simple MMs. They set up vehicles for the ecosystem, attract other institutional LPs for key assets of interest, and help grow the ecosystem through a wide set of initiatives, which also line up well with the strategy that BD and capital markets teams are working for: tokenization, stablecoin payments, remittances, and more. No contract has been signed, so nothing I can promise as of now in terms of more details or deadlines, but trust me when I say we have some incredible people internally working hard at this. We want to solve it ASAP, but we want to solve it the right way while protecting the Algorand Foundation at the same time. So I think this is a really good answer. What I like about it is it's just straight up transparent. And by the way, this is Algo Scout who kind of brought this off. Also has the Alpha Arcade badge. I'm still amazed that I have it, by the way. So there, it's being worked on. I think liquidity is being worked on, and I think that's really important. I'm glad to see that. Ooh. Well, we're about an hour in. I hope everyone's doing well. By the way, if you haven't hit the like button, if you're new here, you haven't hit the like button yet, I really appreciate that. The more you can hit the like button, the more it helps the channel. And your chats are great. I love having everyone in the chat. That's wonderful. But the like button really spreads it around, so I appreciate that if you guys do that. I don't understand why Fred is ignoring our products completely. You must understand that Clam is the missing piece for Algorand. I don't know what Clam is, dude. I mean, I'm guessing AMM is automatic market maker, but what's CL? Anyway, like I said, I like that they're just being honest and straightforward. I think that's awesome. Gonna have some Hedera concentrated liquidity. I see. Okay. Yeah, I don't know enough about that to comment at this point. I just avoid commenting on stuff I don't fully understand, and I don't understand it. It's the AMM where you pick the price range where you set the liquidity. Okay. Thanks for the update on that. I'll have to look into that more. Okay. I'm going to take a little break and get some water, and then we're going to finish up our H-bar segment. So give me a second here. I'm going to, in fact, actually,
act, but there's this this potential, not workaround, but this potential like notion that they may hour with some of this implementation with the Genius Act and also with Clarity, right? Do I have that right, Gerald?
Yeah, no, I think this is a topic that people have basically been struggling with since the passage of Genius, which, you know, obviously is a law in the books. And so now people are kind of coming at it from other angles, trying to establish I think that the challenge to me with the idea that first of all, we have to like define stablecoin, right? Which is part of what Genius did. And, you know, okay, so this is how it's going to be backed. It's going to be backed by T-bills, money market funds. It's going to be auditable, you know, fully collateralized. So it's like, okay, we know what stablecoins are, but everyone in finance has to figure out how to pass incentives and rewards and benefits onto their users, right? And so this to me is a big sort of realization by the banks that commercial deposits are actually terrible for, like, when you talk about incentives and rewards, you know, for the folks that use them. I mean, it's been kind of a monopoly on, you know, the money system, the lending system for a while. And to see this kind of innovation, you know, be questioned or prevented just because they don't want to have to give you 4%, you know, on your account is disappointing. And some of the arguments they're making seem like things that they should have considered when they were being asked about the drafts of the bill. I think that's another thing that a lot of folks in DC like to point out is they were part of the process, lockstep. Like all the big banks, they were there. It's not like they were surprised by this. And so it's kind of really disheartening to see this level of a pushback and fight after this is already done. Like it seems like sort of hopefully too little too late, but we'll see how it shapes out.
So why weren't they more vocal on this at the time? Is it just something that they missed?
You know, I'm sure we should definitely ask Lee about that. I'm sure there are people much, you know, more informed than me on the topic. My kind of theory is maybe they've just been playing this game a lot longer than we have as an industry, and they recognized that they were going to have an opportunity to kind of switch things around. and let the industry get the win, and then also start adopting the technology. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like we're talking about the year of the suits, right? Like stable coins are one of the only products that really has product market fit in crypto. Traditional finance realizes that, and so I think it's probably some combination of just waiting and seeing what they could do with rulemaking and other avenues, and then just the momentum behind that legislation. I think people forget how crazy the actual crypto week was in DC, where that vote failed, right? And then it came back, and then it was, what are we going to do? And we got Genius passing a law, but yeah, it's been a wild ride for stable coins so far.
Yeah, about to get wilder.
Yeah.
Well, I think we may have some comments. Okay, for Kentucky here.
There you go.
Been to Kentucky. All right, Northwest Washington in the house. Washington. Now, this might be a silly question. Is that Washington, D.C., or is that Washington State?
I'm going to guess by that profile picture that it is Washington State.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
and I respect it. Yeah. But
I've only been to Seattle, Washington. That's not really like Eleanor. Hey.
Yeah, that's the fan club.
All right. Thank you guys. No, we appreciate all of you guys tuning in as always. So we are going to get to Ben. We did share a little bit before that we were at Chainlink's SmartCon conference, and we sat down with Ben Jones from Optimism to talk about the future of Ethereum in the US, layer 2 scaling, and what his team is building with the Optimism superchain. So,
okay, I'm back.
Optimism. We are recording on the ground.
What is going on there? Sean Vogel in the chat saying hello from Virginia Beach. Hello, Sean Vogel. Yeah, so I got my Hedera segment to start. And you know how I do these, so I just go through the segment. If it's relevant to the segment, I'll bring it up. If not, I'll wait till afterwards. But, well, guys, I've been tracking the Canary ETF for Hedera, and I'll be honest, it did way better than I thought. I thought it was going to do like okay. To be honest, I mean, I totally thought it would do okay-ish, but not amazing. It's actually doing pretty amazing. So why don't we take a look at the latest around the Canary H-bar ETF. Still over 387 million, over 0.77% max supply on a down crypto week. So this is the amount that is currently in the Canary ETF, the H-bar ETF. It is 387 million H-bar, which has a market value right now of about 63 million. Now it was a little higher because H-bar was higher, so it's actually gone up. Oh, by the way, it's a Green Blue Algo saying that, remember when you had to answer a door when Amazon dropped off a package? They would sit there and ring your doorbell. Yeah, I just had someone ring my doorbell while I was in the middle of that segment. It's annoying. Anyway. So that's pretty good, by the way. We kind of covered this more. Now, why didn't I think this would do that well? I didn't think the institutions would have institutional investors, like the traditional investors. I just didn't think they would have enough knowledge of H-bar to actually support this thing in the early days. I thought it would take a while because a lot of the boomer set, they're just getting used to Bitcoin and Ethereum. And a lot of these money managers, they're getting asked about it. They're getting really basic questions about Ethereum and Bitcoin. They're not on to Ethereum yet, or to H-bar yet, but it sounds like a lot of people are, which is pretty impressive. By the way, and I want to talk about this a little bit because as per Token Terminal, Hedera has the second largest core developer pool across all L1s, and that is core developers is 204 for Ethereum, 129 for Hedera, Cosmos 92, Internet Computer 90, etc. Going down Sui, Polkadot, Kusama, Cardano. Supposedly, Algorand is like 6. So I don't know, what does this mean? What is a core developer? Because they talked about the project. Are they talking about, actually working on the chain? Is that what they're talking about? Or are they talking about like building projects that are on the chain? I don't really understand it. So does anyone like actually question this? How many developers in the private GitHub repository? That's a question I have. Oh, there we are. Looks like we're back. I saw that we disconnected for a second there. That sucks. Oddly enough, we came back with more viewers than we had. All right, let's keep going. Philippines Department of Science and Technology, Hashgraph Group, have officially begun their collaboration with the signing of an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, at THG's headquarters in Switzerland. DOST is responsible for leading and coordinating all scientific and technology efforts in the country. So it looks like HBAR is going to be at the bottom of all the science and technology department going on in the Philippines. Actually, I guess it would be Switzerland. That's a lot of acronyms. That's a lot to keep track of there. But it seems like good news for HBAR. If you're an HBAR fan, you like to see spread of the ecosystem. Now, I thought this was interesting. We've been talking about privacy coins. John Allen Woods, just on my show yesterday, huge advocate of privacy, thinks privacy is a human right. I kind of agree with that. I think we're both a little bit on the libertarian side, so we both think, privacy, you should be able to keep your business your own business, in my opinion. Breaking HBAR becomes a privacy coin through subnets and competes with Zcash and Monero, in case you're wondering what those are. Hedera private spheres, such as HashSphere, are private permission networks built using the same core technology as the public Hedera network. They are designed for organizations that need the security and compliance of traditional private network while also wanting the benefits of Hedera's distributed ledger technology, such as scalability and performance. Kind of important. These private spheres allow for confidential transactions without public exposure and can be interconnected with the public Hedera mainnet. So that's cool. If you're privacy is a really important aspect in crypto. And I know we talk a lot about public and public blockchain, and I think the privacy layer is good. I think you're going to see businesses wanting to make use of this for payments. That's going to be an interesting element to see for enterprise, I think. And, for regular people, they're going to want this too. But, as they say, private network solutions that scales with your organization and DLT journey. So, this is a HashSphere clearly aimed at the enterprise customer, but that doesn't mean they won't have a retail solution too. You just don't know really. What else we got here? And did you guys see this? There's a couple of partnerships here. Hedera, by integrating with Chainlink, Hedera enables developers to build secure cross-chain DeFi and tokenized RWA applications with trusted data and seamless interoperability. Explore how we are shaping a connected, transparent, on-chain economy together. Someone says, damn, Chainlink is popping up everywhere with collaborations and partnerships nonstop. It's true. So is Hedera, apparently. We're going to get to that in a second, but like everything but Algorand, which I still want to see. I know it's expensive. I think it's one of the things that Algorand should pay for. Hedera obviously understands the integration and why it's important. I think Chainlink is one of the better things in crypto. It's just they built an actual business model. They have and you can argue whether some of the chains should have a business model, but I think if they're going to be self-sustaining, at least that has to be part of the equation. And so Chainlink has done a good job of that. I like how they're taking their off-chain revenues and putting them on-chain, so the token holders benefit from those partnerships. And so this is very positive for Hedera. I think it's just really important to be connected to Chainlink at this point. Chainlink is clearly emerging as the winner in this space. And I think this is a really smart idea from Hedera. And not the only one, by the way. You could say this officially closes the loop. Quant and Hedera. No longer just ties, now officially documented. So now these are working group and sandbox participants in the global digital finance, Onera, EY, Hogan Levels. We got Besu, Canton Network, Corda, Ethereum, Hedera, Polygon, and Stellar. While no official partnership, the ties are definitely evident, is now it's evident. So this one just kind of lays out all the different areas where they're tied together. Accenture, IBM, which uses both Hedera and Quant. Accenture uses Hedera and Quant. Palo Tasca, Gov UK, Lloyds Bank, Monetary Authority, Singapore. It's no coincidence that both Quant and Hedera were two of the 4 DLTs listed as Discover members at Cebos Ether, but as we've seen, it goes much deeper than just the financial sector, but also into tech giants, consultancy leaders, government entities, standards, and more. The world of enterprises and corporations all see the alignment here. As you guys probably know, Quant and Hedera are two of the DLTs that I see some of the most long-term enterprise and institutional scale use with. From all we see, they build towards the same path. Now, I don't know a ton about Quant, I'll be honest. But I like how they kind of laid this out here, and I like that there seem to be a lot of connections between the two. Like I said, now officially documented, so we got a nice partnership between Quant and HBAR, and yeah, maybe I'll have to look more into Quant now that it's got these strong ties with HBAR. But I'm huge on HBAR. Let's check on the HBAR price really quick. Oops. Yeah, up about 7% on the 24 hours, so good, but not necessarily great. It's a nice little run up. Obviously, we were much higher a week ago. This is the 1 hour. Let's go to let's look at the weekly. We're definitely still down 8%. Hedera really pumped up with the news of the Canary ETF. In fact, is this it here? No, this is. Wait, what did we go to? I feel like this isn't showing me what I want to see. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I believe this is the Canary run up. You can see we got up to over 21. In fact, a little flash on the 4 hour up to almost 22. Yeah, it's been kind of climbing down as most crypto has. Nice little pump in the last 24 hours or so. So starting to go the right direction for Hedera. In fact, we can put the indicators on too. Just give me a second to add those. It never really hit below that 30, and it never really hit oversold territory. Kind of bounced off of it, which is maybe a signal of its strength. Definitely got into oversold. I mean, we were overbought. We were very much an overbought during that little canary pump that we had. But yeah, kind of holding steady now, right in the mid range of the RSI. So not really overbought, not really oversold, which means this might have a little more leg to run. Now, this was different in Algorand. Remember, when we looked at Algorand, it was already into oversold territory, but we're about mid range on this one. So yeah, nice to see that from Hedera. I think that institutional adoption is huge, especially since they got it before the XRP one. That's really big. Don't discount that for sure. So yeah, really nice to see. Yeah, so I always like to do an Hedera segment, always good stuff. And that's all I really got. I think it's going to end up. I think it's still got a lot of room to run now. Are we? Do we really gonna have a bull run this cycle? I'm not sure. Sometimes I wonder. So I'm gonna go back on something Jeffrey said. I know you don't cover much going on in Solana, but the Aura equivalent called Aura is going parabolic. Interesting. What is? Let's take a look at that while we're here. Here's our who it is. It is going parabolic at 400 right now. Too bad we couldn't get Orange to do that, huh? That's pretty good. That's yeah, it's a 250% up on the week. That's huge. Thanks for pointing out. I think that's interesting. We'll have to look at this this Aura. And you say this is the Solana equivalent of Aura on Algorand, which is pretty interesting. It's definitely an interesting project. So I'd be curious how that interacts with Solana, how it works. What are people? Where can you get it? So it looks like a pretty you can get it on Orca, Meteora, Bing XL Bank. So you can't really. It's not even like that's pretty good for not trading on any of the main exchanges. It looks like very interesting. Well, we got a little time. Do you guys want to like finish up? Maybe we'll watch some more of Eleanor's show. Maybe we can pause for commentary. Is the audio cutting out for you? That sucks. It seems to be working on my end, so I don't know what to do.
Aren't all going to pan out. Those aren't all going to, in 1 year, turn into the next revolutionary product, but they are definitely there. They definitely exist. And
L2, yeah. I think it's a problem. The fact that you need a layer 2 to me is like kind of a problem with the underlying coin, right? It's kind of annoying.
the fact that people are announcing them is clearly a sign that they're willing to go and experiment and do more. So, is the job done? No, absolutely not. At the same time, I think it's undeniable that the signals that people are providing with their actions in terms of how they're thinking about launching products, these announcements, shipping things, means that it must be a better environment.
For what it's worth, I think your legal team will love that answer.
Okay, okay.
Ben, we're here at SmartCon. Obviously, I have to ask you, from your time here today, what's been your biggest takeaway or the best thing you've learned today while you've been here?
I mean, it's all about community and discussion, and I kind of joked in the beginning about there's a bunch of, behind the scenes, there's a bunch of suits off in the distance over here, and the suits can do good things now, I think is my number one takeaway. There was an era where going to a crypto conference and meeting some suits was a recipe for a boring conversation or...
That's kind of funny, actually. I'm actually thinking about going to ETH Denver when it comes up, so... I don't know. Would you guys find that interesting? Would you like watch stuff about ETH Denver? I'd be curious about that. I don't know. It seemed like a good one. I think the entry is free, and I haven't heard anything about Decipher. If there's going to be another Decipher, there was last year, I believe. So, Chaos Neo says Algo to $1. Well, I sure hope so.
An educational, a one-way education that was valuable, but it wasn't a two-way exchange, and it wasn't real. Discussion about how we're going to build the future of finance and bring new tools on chain. So my biggest takeaway is that there are people here now that are from big institutions that we can go and talk to and have a two-way conversation, not just a one-way conversation. Does it mean that they know exactly what a blockchain is in a way that, Ben of 7 years ago wouldn't have scoffed his nose at a little bit from an engineering perspective? Absolutely not. Does it mean that they have the rough shape and are able to drive a conversation forward? And I can ask questions about what it means for them to move on chain and get an answer that makes sense to me and might be useful to me in determining what Optimism's product should be? Yes, we are at that point. So I guess that summed up in a word is like maturity. It's like this space is maturing to a point where these conversations can go both ways.
You know what? That's a point Ben Melker or Scott Melker had on his show today too, is that really seeing a maturing market, which means you're not gonna see Bitcoin and Ethereum drop a whole heck of a lot like it used to, which in some ways sucks. That volatility was you know, it wrecked people because they didn't understand it. But the ones that understood it, it was a huge opportunity. So there, you know, there's some good and some bad, but it's also the maturing market is why I'm kind of switching to a buy and hold when it comes to Algorand or sorry, not Algorand. Well, I am kind of doing that with Algorand, but with Ethereum and Bitcoin, because I just don't think the volatility is there for those big, take advantage of by buying in dips as much. I'm still buying the dips, but I'm just dollar cost averaging in now and trying to like build my Bitcoin position and my Ethereum position.
Love that.
Ben, aside from everything we've discussed, what is something that you're paying attention to that you think others should as well?
Oh man, are you trying to? I'm getting in trouble with my lawyers and leaking all my alpha. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I think ironically, we've talked a big talk, and I think we've made huge strides in terms of user experience, especially in the Ethereum community. I mean, in the past year, we had account abstraction ship. I don't want to get into a bunch of weeds on the tech, but basically something that allows us to put a layer of abstraction between on-chain actions being taken by wallets and the user interfaces that we display to our users. That is a big change. I think that's unlocked a lot of folks that can actually not take a massive user experience hit by moving products on-chain. At the same time, I don't think we've grappled with the universality of those components nearly enough. So I think that there's a really exciting next wave of innovation that's going to happen that abstracts away not only what it means to be transacting within one blockchain ecosystem, but allows you to transact in a way that transcends any one blockchain. And maybe that's a boring answer. It's just like wallet UX is going to keep getting better, but I feel like we have an opportunity to get a little lazy now that the wallet UX has gotten passable. And I think that the next level of this is to make it freaking excellent.
100% what he's saying. And this is something I've been saying since, the early days of this channel is the stuff has to be usable. And he's talking about abstracting away. In other words, people being able to use the blockchain without really being aware of that. If you had to understand, think about the early days of the internet. Like you had to really use it a lot. You had to understand a lot about how the internet works. In fact, I'm listening to the Acquired episode about Google right now and Alphabet. And they were talking about what a mistake it was to have the URL tab ever in the first place. Like it never should have been a thing. It should have always been keyword based. And instead, like that was like a mistake of engineering. But crypto does that a lot. Like there's a lot of stuff where it's like the user shouldn't have to do this crazy nonsense. It should be like really easy on the user end. Kind of like GUI made the graphical user interface that we all take for granted now. Like that was groundbreaking and bringing people into using computers. Before that, people were pretty baffled by computers. I remember some of my early PCs when I was a little kid, they were like green screen command line stuff. And, there was quite a barrier to entry. Now it's kind of intuitive because you have this visual user interface. I think, I talked with John Woods about that a couple times ago. And, it's something where crypto really, that's why I initially liked Sui a lot, because I thought they were doing a lot of abstraction stuff from the beginning. I like that. Some stuff I don't like about Sui now, but still holding it as a coin. But anyway, I think he's 100% right here.
I love his energy. He has the best energy.
Yeah, that was such a fun conversation. And I think like speaking of, Year of the Suits and his observations from like an engineering, he's like truly, I feel like if you made like a technical founder in a lab, you would get Ben. And that was a really fun conversation and going to be fun to segue back here to the land of the suits or the not suits with our next guest here.
Yes, our next guest is Avalab's General Counsel, Lee Schneider, who's been actively in contact with regulators across the globe, including the SEC, and we're going to get into all those things. But to be honest, I don't think I've ever seen Lee wearing a suit, except for maybe when we had dinner in London at the Avalabs conference that we were all at back in May, which feels like an awfully long time ago, does it not?
I was not wearing a suit that night. The only time I've worn a suit recently was when I went to the Genius Act signing ceremony at the White House.
Fair enough.
And I got a lot of I got a lot of grief from people because I also had a tie on because I had to run out and buy a tie because I don't have any ties anymore. But thankfully, the Senate side gift shop had a wonderful tie, salmon colored, I'm told. So I look very dashing. At least that's what Hester Peirce said. So what can I say?
Yeah, so that's what it takes to get Lee Schneider in a suit now, huh? You got
Invite me to the White House. I'll wear a suit.
White House, anything else? Lee, when did you decide that you were just too cool of a crypto lawyer to have to wear suits anymore? How did that happen?
I decided that.
By the way, I just noticed we were not on X. We got booted off of X. I think when when OBS went down for a little bit. Jam just K says, folks, to $100. Well, you never know. I don't know. I think these things tend to pump and then they drop and then they do something afterwards. So we'll see what it does afterwards. I'll go up 10%, but making that violent sound shape. Yeah. And Jeffrey says if we can get algo to 20 to 22 cents and hold for a day or so, could be a strong signal for a trend reversal. Yeah, and I think it's really going to follow the rest of the market. But you also have these, as we saw today, we had a lot of outliers. And that's why I just tend to hang on to the projects that I buy and just wait for a pump. And when they do, I'm going to take some profits.
Actually, a little bit before I became a crypto lawyer, because I was doing a lot of fintech work more generally. And I was going around seeing clients and, there were a lot of people in jeans and t-shirts and flip-flops and shorts. And I kind of decided at that point, I'm not, loving wearing a suit all the time. And so I kind of gave it up for the most part. So it's been a good 12 or 14 years now since I sort of gave up suits mostly.
We joked yesterday. We had Hunter Horsley from Bitwise on the podcast, who that episode's going to be coming out relatively soon. But we were joking how, he has meetings quite frequently with wealth advisors. And, he says, I feel like I have to show up to these meetings in suits and ties. And he's like, I do. And it's just, I don't wear suits and ties anymore. He's like, I showed up to something with Morgan Stanley the other day. He's like, didn't have a tie on. He's like, I fit right in. He's like, people just aren't wearing them anymore.
Yeah. Except at blockchain conferences now, people are starting to wear suits again. Like lawyers I've known in the blockchain space for 8, 10, 12 years are starting to wear suits to the conferences. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Stop.
Yeah, well, I can tell you where they still definitely wear suits is DC. And Lee, you've been doing a lot of God's work down there. How has it been going?
This sounds like a funny conversation, by the way, but it is true. I've just seen a lot of people just aren't wearing suits or really dressing up very formally anymore. I've noticed. In fact, the fellow here's dressed up pretty nice. People just aren't doing that anymore. It's really interesting, even in professional settings, that used to be the thing. People really dressed up even 15 years ago, I would say. And then that just seems to disappear, which, it is what it is. Cloudy Vibe saying, what's up, my guy? What's up, my friend? Can't believe I missed out on yesterday's live. I don't know why I'm not getting notifications. It's a real frustration. Yeah, my girlfriend is a podcast producer and she works on another a YouTube channel as part of that podcast producing, and they have the same problem. They have way more subscribers than I do, and sometimes they had fewer views than I do right now on YouTube. It's kind of crazy. So I don't know right now, but I mean yesterday when I looked. So it's kind of crazy. Yeah. But definitely check that out. The replays are always available, and I'm probably going to be sharing some clips from that too. So yeah, but yeah, it was a fun chat with John Allen Woods yesterday. I definitely recommend people check it out, but we'll get back to this.
What do you think about where we are with market structure? I know we're going to dig into all of it, but just tell us a bit about, what took you down there and what kind of impact do you think you guys and we as an industry are having on the Hill right now?
Yeah, sure. So I've been going to Capitol Hill for quite some time now, 8, 9 years. Even back when I was general counsel at Block One, when I first went in-house, we recognized the importance of doing education in Washington, D.C., and particularly on Capitol Hill and at some of the regulators. Obviously, at the SEC and the CFTC, they've had some very sophisticated people on the staff for quite some time, but it never hurts to talk to the commissioners and make sure they understand the tech, but it was especially important on Capitol Hill to do the education. So I've been running around Capitol Hill for quite some time now. And And it's been mostly on an educational mission until recently. Obviously, with Genius Act this year and the market structure stuff this year, I've been much more focused on the actual language of legislation, trying to make sure that we get the legislation to reflect reality, but also trying to make sure that the legislation provides a smooth glide path to good market structure for the United States. And I think that's the key issue right now between the Clarity Act from the House and then what's being negotiated in the Senate.
Yeah, Lee, you've been talking to the SEC crypto task force about how tokens function a lot and how they fit into blockchain networks and why that matters for regulators and how they should be thinking about this as they converse with Congress and vice versa. But I'm curious to know, like, how do you explain to regulators the difference between a token that's, integral to a network and one that might be considered a security? Because for so long we were told that everything under the sun was a security, right, by Gary Gensler, and now that's changing, and there's actually like token classification that's going on, and there's rules for this stuff now that's being laid out. So kind of how are you going about, I think you talk about education, right? How are you going about educating and kind of laying out and having these conversations?
Yeah, I want to address something Cody Vibes is saying in the chat. I smell alt season. Market is pumping like crazy, while Bitcoin and Ethereum are not, which I think is really interesting. Yeah, maybe this is the start of the alt pump. You just don't know. You just really don't know until it happens. But my strategy is always independent of actually recognizing that. Yeah, we covered the Filecoin. That was crazy. There's a few crazy ones on there, to be honest. My strategy is like I'll pick a bunch of projects during the bear market that I think are really going to take off, that are going to do well, and I kind of hold on to them and I take profits when they go up. But if they don't, I just, whatever. They're not. It's always money that's not going to like crush me. In fact, I was talking with my girlfriend about this last night. I was talking about the amount that I had staked on Algorand, and she's like, "So is that like an amount that won't like break the bank, so to speak?" And I'm like, yeah, I mean, if it all went to zero, it would obviously really, really suck. But I don't think that's going to happen. But if it did, it wouldn't like completely crush me. It would suck. It always sucks to lose money. And I personally think the money you put into crypto should be money. And I would make Bitcoin and Ethereum an exception on this, especially Bitcoin. But I think it should be money you like could afford to lose. I don't think it should be. I just don't think your entire net worth should be in crypto. I know a lot of people disagree with me on that, and that's fine. But that's my opinion. So anyway, yeah, I did want to address that because the market is doing like some crazy stuff. Anyway, let's get back to this
with regulators and policymakers in DC.
And Ellie, I think the sun actually is a security under the Gensler regime. So just so you know. But,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I've been banging on about token classification for quite some time right now, because frankly, one of the things that really attracted me to blockchain technology was this ability to tokenize any asset, to digitally represent assets in a digitally unique form, right? That's really cool technology. That is one of the hard problems in computer science that's solved by blockchains. And so to me, that's always been sort of the holy grail. This is what we are all shooting for. Now, Ellie, you said the tokens that are integral to the network or protocol. That's exactly the focus that we've had as one of our classification areas. We call them protocol tokens now, right? That's a token that's integral to the functioning of a protocol. And that's we see as sort of the key to unlocking really good workable market structure legislation. We can differentiate those tokens because of the fact that they're integral to the network from tokenized assets. So tokenized securities and other financial instruments, tokenized event tickets and other cool uses for NFT technology, tokenized loyalty points or frequent flyer miles, tokenized digital art, and right. So there's all of these different things that are getting tokenized over the course of time. And that's something that we in the Avalanche ecosystem focus on very heavily because of the way the Avalanche technology works. So this is exactly what I've been explaining to people. Look, when you think about a digital representation of an asset or a bundle of rights, that's what tokenization is all about. It's no different than writing something on a piece of paper, recording it on an Excel spreadsheet database, or some other kind of centralized database, except it's decentralized. And that presents all kinds of new possibilities that opens up the world to participate, as opposed to just little corners that then have to figure out how they interoperate with the other little corners, et cetera, et cetera. So, from our perspective, this is super important stuff, and it's super interesting stuff, and it's the wave of the future.
Lee, I'm curious. So we as lawyers obviously love the technology, but we also love defining things. We love our definitions. And you just mentioned several of the ways you guys are categorizing these tokens. I know much more recently, because you guys have been making this argument for years, but Miles Jennings put out the Andreessen sort of taxonomy that I think was like pretty heavily aligned just philosophically with what you guys were putting together. When you're talking to other attorneys, and as we go from the House to the Senate, and now we start this ancillary assets definition discussion, how hard is it to just agree within the legal community on some of those definitions? And I've been part of some of those discussions. I know they're people are very passionate, and then to take that definition to a member of Congress and get them on board with what you're talking about. Like, what is that process like?
Yeah, I mean,
Hey, Jeffrey, thanks for the super chat. I appreciate that so much. And happy holidays to you too, my friend. Very much appreciate it.
look, you and I've had some really good conversations about it ourselves, often with a cocktail in our hands, which has been good. But I think that's the whole point, is we've got to keep having these conversations, because different lawyers sort of look at it from different vantage points. So I think you're broadly right that the A16Z classification system and ours are sort of aligned at a high level. But one of the cool things about their classification system is they dug in a little bit more on protocol tokens and native DLT tokens, and sort of tried to get some different groupings within that broader category, which is not something that we've spent a huge amount of time doing. And I think some of the work that they did there was really good. There's also some stuff that I disagree with, and Miles and I have vigorous conversations about this stuff all the time. So it's having those conversations. It's getting a bunch of lawyers who are really knowledgeable and sophisticated about the law here that I think is really important. I was at SmartCon this week. I was on a really good panel, and one of the points that we kept making on that panel is, if it's going to be SEC jurisdiction, it's got to be a security. You can't just sort of ram all tokens into SEC jurisdiction if they're not securities. And
yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. Let's see. Cloudy Vibe says, I don't hold Zcash. One of my friends been bragging about Zcash going crazy lately. Yeah, it was interesting because John Woods brought that up yesterday and talked about Monero and Zcash. He's a big Monero fan, and so he was a little surprised to see Zcash taking off. But I guess he said early on Zcash had a lot of issues. Like you had to, I think you had to do some KYC to start your, wallet or something like that. He was kind of talking about that. Apparently they've fixed a lot of those issues, he said. So that was good to see. Change code 25 and welcome to the show says, how much is a lot of Algorand to hold? He says, I'm trying to get to 1 million algo. I mean, it's hard to, that's a really hard thing to say. If you said how much cash to hold, how much is a lot of cash to hold? Like, it kind of depend on the person and their circumstance. So I would think 1 million, that's probably a lot of Algorand, right? Well, you think about it, if it got to $1 one day, you would have $1 million worth of Algorand. So that seems like a lot, or even 50 cents would be 500,000. That seems like a lot too. And it kind of depends on what you're doing with it. So Change Code says, I think Algorand and Google partnership is so underestimated. I think that's think that's going to be a long-term, really, really good thing. And that's why I'm kind of hanging on to my Algorand. Meanwhile, putting it, into staking, which I think is working really well. I've been having good results with that. Almost made I have about 41,000 Algorand, and now it turned into almost 42,000 Algorand. Green Blue says 30,000 plus is a good threshold for node stake. Yeah, so if you got 30,000, you can run a node, which I do. I could run a node if I wanted to. I'm just happy doing the ready pool. I think it's a little bit easier. Let's see. Cloudy Vev says, I'm trying to hold 300,000 Algorand before it pop off. That's a good goal. I mean, it all depends on what you want to do and what's your outcome. What are you hoping to do with it? Are you hoping to, sell it for profit at some point? Are you hoping to use the ecosystem? And all kinds depends on what you want to do. So it's hard to say. I mean, it's nice to have a goal, I guess, if you want to have a goal. Like I've got some goals with Bitcoin and Ethereum. And Algorand, I just kind of keep adding to it every once in a while at dips, and staking to earn more, and that's good. So, yeah, good discussion, good point.
And that's super important to keep saying over and over and over again, because people get a mindset of, well, it trades like the stocks trade. It is electronically and with algorithms and smart contracts and stuff like that. Well, it must be a stock if it trades that way. And that's sort of like a default setting in a lot of people's heads, when of course FX trades that way and lots of other.
The KS Neo, welcome to the show. Thanks for watching. How to stake or run an algo node. Okay, so first off, if you have the Para wallet, you can stake to a ready pool right from your wallet. So that's probably the easiest way to do it. It's not quite as good as running your own node. Running your own node, you're gonna have to look at a tutorial. I can't walk you through that right on stream here, but there are a lot of options. There's also the Valor. If you look up Valor Algorand, you can find some ways to do that. That's kind of like an in-between running a node and staking. Now I will say, I should say between running a node and ready pools. Someone says, is that Anna Kournikova? Nope, that's Eleanor Terrett. She's a Fox Business News reporter who covers crypto. But anyway, is it complicated to run a node? Kinda not. Oh, I should point out, people are saying Tinyman is easy. Yeah, there's liquid staking options. If you go to Tinyman or to Folks Finance, you can run it through that way. Running a node is, well, first off, the hardware requirements are really low. So you could use a little mini PC to run it. You could probably use it if you had an old laptop that you weren't really using anymore. You could run it on there pretty easily. Change code says, I run a node, download Funk. There are videos, very easy. Yeah, so that might be the way to do it. Funk has a pretty good program for running it, so you don't have to it takes a lot of the guesswork out. She looks a little out of shape. Yeah, I don't really need to comment on people's appearance. But yeah, I'd say it kind of depends on the complexity, but I don't think it's like super hard. You do have to have, I think you'd pretty much have to have a dedicated computer, but it doesn't have to be, like I said, an old laptop will handle it. I think Mark, the CMO of Algorand, was running it on his old MacBook Pro and having pretty good luck with it, and it was pretty old computer. So I saw some people look at saying you can get like a, getting like a Mac Mini, and you could also just get you can get these like mini PCs for like $100-$150, and you can run a node and earn money that way. But I just like to use Ready Pool. It's just easy. I don't have to run anything. I don't have to worry about it going down. It's just easier. So I'm just going to finish up this segment, and then I think we'll call it a day, by the way.
Other types of assets trade that way. I mean, for crying out loud, you can trade sneakers that way these days. So we do have to be careful here, because the world is moving towards this electronic trading of all different kinds of assets for all different kinds of purposes. We're able to buy all different kinds of things online. Somebody once said to me, sorry for going on long here, but somebody once said to me, well, the big difference is blockchain settles instantaneously. And if you buy something from Amazon, you're not going to get it for 3 days. And I was
Delayed
like,
gratification in securities law. I haven't seen that one. Yeah.
right, exactly. And I said to them, I don't know what you're buying from Amazon, but I get most things next day and a lot of things same day. So you better upgrade your plan at Amazon.
Yeah. Do you get the sense that, where we are in market structure discussions, talks? I know there's two sort of bills in the different houses, right? You've got obviously the House's Clarity Act, and then you've got what's going on in the Senate, which is, depending on who you talk to, you've got kind of different stages of, you've got obviously your House, you've got your Senate Ag draft, which we don't know where that is exactly right now. And then you've got your Senate Banking draft, which, kind of, if you read my newsletter, you kind of know like the stages of where we are, but we may or may not see some drafts in the coming days or weeks. But all that to say, do you think what will be sort of the consensus on the token classification, once we get like a full market structure bill? Like, where do you think that will sit? Will that be the House's version with the Clarity Act, or will this be the kind of the new like ancillary asset angle we're seeing with the Senate draft? And what do you think is maybe is better for you, or in your view at Ava Labs as GC?
Okay, that's just, I thought I could pull that out, and it didn't follow it though. So, okay. Well, I think we're going to close things off today, but I appreciate everyone tuning in. Let's see. Change Code says, here's the Trojan horse strategy. Get everyone used to transfer algo at very low cost, and Algorand will increase cost, lots of revenue for Algorand. Okay. Frugal, maybe a good idea to make a video on how to use Tiny Man, Folks Finance, and Ready Pool. Yeah, I'll consider that. Anyway, thanks so much everyone for tuning in. Appreciate you all being here for the live stream. Like I said, I like to close those out with like just kind of looking at some general stuff, watching those live streams, and it gives us a chance to make some commentary. So maybe I'll start doing that from now on. But thanks for tuning in. Hope everyone's doing well out there. I'm Frugal BC, and I will see you